So it's Heartbreak City in Memphis, as the Grizzlies are finally willing to entertain the idea of trading Marc Gasol and Mike Conley. I spoke on Gasol not long ago, so this video is going to be dedicated to the point guard, who is generously paid, but is still very good. The question is, can Conley be as good as he is now a few years down the road? Well, the first question I have is, can he continue to beat guys off the dribble? Because while he's not a blistering athlete, he's nowhere near the Russell Westbrook, Damian Lillards of the world. He's still very crafty. He's one of the best ball handlers in the league. He navigates the pick and roll at an elite level. So can he do all this when he's going to be 35, 36 years old? Because you assume whatever team trades for him would hope that they can hold on to him for a long time, right? I think where I end up on all this is he's certainly going to get a little worse at this as he gets older, but I think he's talented enough to make up for this in other ways. So basically what I'm saying is the jump shot should carry him along as he doesn't have the legs that he has now, or even the legs of a couple years ago. He's a very good shooter, consistently above league average from three, and I would like to think that he could actually get better at this if he has to focus on it more, if he needs to go to it in order to still be effective as he ages. A player that this reminds me of is actually Chauncey Billups, who at the age of 33 years old was still an all-star, and a big reason for it was he was one of the best shooters in the league. Now, whether he ever gets the all-star monkey off his back or not, I don't know, but I do think Conley can still be really good. Another thing we have to point to is his playmaking, and while Conley has never been among the league leaders in assists, he's always been one of the best at not turning the ball over, and we have to assume that is going to translate as he gets older as well. And what that also shows is perhaps the most important thing you need as an aging basketball player is that you're smart. Conley doesn't dribble himself into trouble, and he can read defenses. If we look at another older point guard, Kyle Lowry, he's still making quite an impact for the Raptors, and his playmaking has been probably his best trait this season. He's struggling in other areas, but we're seeing just how effective you can be if you just know what you're doing at that position. So to sum all of that up, I feel pretty good about an aging Mike Conley as a talent. But there's another side to this, and his health has been a little bit more of a question throughout his career, so we do have to recognize that. And now if we can get to actual trade talks, what should the Grizzlies expect in a move for Conley? Well, I think in a perfect world, they could get a first-round pick, a young player, and expiring contracts to make the money work. But given his salary and his age, I don't know if you're going to get that if you're Memphis. I think you have to be willing to compromise. Now, there are quite a few teams that need a point guard, and I'm going to talk about a few of them, but I don't think they're going to get the world for him. One team that I've been talking about a lot over this trade deadline is the Indiana Pacers. They have a lot of cap space and a whole lot of expiring contracts, which would make this trade pretty easy, and they do need another guy on the perimeter to help out Victor Oladipo, but if they acquired Mike Conley, that would eat up a lot of their salary cap. And I don't know if Conley really takes them over the top. But at the same time, Victor Oladipo's contract is not as long as you may think, as he's there until the end of 2021. Maybe you need to make a move like this to ensure that you keep him for his next contract. And I know Miles Turner and Sabonis look good this year, but do we know for a fact if either one of them can be a second star? And are we confident that the Pacers can get a free agent that's better than Mike Conley? I don't know. Another team that I will not shut up about, the New Orleans Pelicans. We all know the Anthony Davis situation. I don't want to take too long with them. But they do have the expirings. Their best one of those being Nikola Mirotic. Elfrid Payton is also on a one-year deal. And I think the Grizzlies would also have to take on Solomon Hill, who's on a 2-year deal, for the money to make sense. I think the biggest thing that this could do is allow them to stagger these 2 point guards, Drew Holiday, and then Mike Conley can share the floor together, but also have their own units, which could allow the Pelicans 48 minutes of good basketball, and a starting lineup of E'Twaun Moore, Julius Randle, And then, of course, their star player, Anthony Davis at the 5 spot. That does sound pretty good, but I don't know if it's worth the risk of giving up future assets. But then again, if you place some protections on the pick, maybe it is worth the risk, because losing Anthony Davis, that does not sound very fun. Another team I've thought of is the Utah Jazz, who, similar to the Pacers, need another perimeter player to take the pressure off of their guy, who is Donovan Mitchell, who's had a rough year overall but has been very good lately for them. And the biggest difference this would make right away, to me, is the shooting, because of course Conley, very good shooter, Rubio, not the best. I think that has been partly why the Jazz spacing has not been beautiful. And one trade chip the Jazz have is Dante Exum, a player who I think can be good, but he's been injured so much throughout his career that he hasn't had a chance to really prove himself. He's making about $9 million. Ricky Rubio is being paid $14 million. He's an expiring. Thabo Cephalosha's $5 million makes the money just about right, and I think the Jazz could also throw in a protected first as well. Sure, it's not a home run, but again, the Grizzlies are trying to trade a slightly overpaid, aging point guard, so it is what it is. I'm gonna guess that the Pistons will at least think about Conley. I don't know if they have the assets though. The deal would basically be Luke Kennard and a bunch of 2-year deal guys. I don't think that gets it done. I actually think the Spurs could make an offer here. They're all in on winning right now with Aldridge and DeRozan. They have an extra draft pick because of the DeRozan trade, and I don't think they even have to give up that much young talent. So they could keep on building up guys like Lonnie Walker, who I think can be a pretty good scorer if you give him some time. Of course, they still have DeJounte Murray, who's going to be back next season, we hope, and healthy and all that. The move could basically be Pau Gasol's partially guaranteed contract for next season, the Raptors pick, maybe one other pick with some protections, Rudy Gay's expiring, and then one other throw-in to make the money just right. Now, I think there are pros and cons to this kind of move. The pros being you would now have 3 very good players, and given that the Western Conference, while everybody's good, there is still a little bit of randomness to it, that could end up making you the second best team in the conference. Especially because Popovich is still here, although we don't know how much longer he's going to be here. But the cons are that Mike just may not be good enough to give up all that future stuff for. But what do I know? I'm just spitballing at this point. He'll probably end up on some team that I didn't even mention.